Welcome everyone. We're about to step into a world crafted entirely out of clay, but the story we're telling is all too real. It's a story about global tensions, the looming threat of World War III, and the forces that could push us to the brink. We're living in a complex world where alliances shift like sand, and a single misstep could have devastating consequences. Welcome to our animated exploration of a topic that has sparked countless debates and concerns: World War III. Let's dive into the factors that could lead to such a catastrophic event.
Our world is a bit like a giant chessboard, with superpowers like the United States, China, and Russia making their moves, vying for influence and control. Each nation, with its own set of values, its own history, and its own ambitions, is trying to protect its interests and secure its future. The problem is, sometimes those interests clash. Take China, for example. Its economic engine is roaring, and it's rapidly expanding its military might. It asserts claims in the South China Sea, challenging the established order and making other countries nervous. Then you have the United States, a global superpower that's been the dominant force for decades. And let's not forget about Russia. Reasserting itself on the world stage, Russia's actions, particularly in Ukraine, have reminded us that old tensions can easily resurface. These power struggles are not just abstract geopolitical games. They have real-world consequences, impacting everything from global trade and economic stability to the safety and security of everyday citizens. That's why understanding these geopolitical fault lines is so important.
But it's not just the big players on the world stage that we need to worry about. All over the globe, regional conflicts simmer and burn, threatening to erupt into something far more dangerous. The Middle East, for example, has been a tinderbox for decades, a region rife with religious tensions, political instability, and competing claims over land and resources. You've got the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, a seemingly intractable struggle that fuels resentment and violence. You've got the ongoing civil war in Syria, a humanitarian catastrophe that's drawn in outside powers and created a breeding ground for extremism. And then there's the rise of terrorist organizations like ISIS, who exploit chaos and instability to spread their ideology of hate and terror. These regional conflicts are like brush fires, dangerous in their own right, but with the potential to spread quickly and engulf entire forests. And what makes them even more dangerous is the tendency for larger powers to get involved, turning local skirmishes into proxy wars. The more involved these superpowers become, the greater the risk that a regional conflict could spiral out of control, drawing in other nations and escalating into a wider war.
Let's talk about the elephant in the room: nuclear weapons. These weapons of unimaginable destructive power hang over our heads like a dark cloud, a constant reminder of the fragility of peace. The world watched in horror as Russia invaded Ukraine, and with it came the chilling rhetoric about the potential use of nuclear weapons. The development and proliferation of nuclear weapons have changed the nature of warfare forever. A single bomb can obliterate entire cities, causing widespread devastation and leaving behind a legacy of radiation poisoning for generations to come. And it's not just the traditional nuclear powers we have to worry about anymore. Countries like North Korea, with its unpredictable leadership and aggressive pursuit of nuclear weapons technology, add another layer of complexity and danger to the equation. The more countries that possess these weapons, the greater the chance of miscalculation, accident, or even intentional use. But, as if nuclear weapons weren't terrifying enough, we're also facing new threats in the realm of cyber warfare.
In a world on edge, alliances are like lifelines, a way for nations to pool their resources, coordinate their defenses, and project strength in a dangerous world. NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, is a prime example. A military alliance formed after World War II to deter Soviet aggression and promote collective security. Its members pledged to defend each other from attack, a powerful deterrent against potential adversaries. But alliances can be double-edged swords. While they offer protection, they can also draw countries into conflicts they might otherwise avoid. The idea of collective defense, while noble in principle, means that an attack on one member is considered an attack on all, potentially triggering a chain reaction that could escalate into a larger conflict. We saw this play out in the aftermath of the 9/11 attacks, when NATO invoked Article 5 of its treaty, declaring that the attack on the United States was an attack on all members. This led to NATO's involvement in the war in Afghanistan, demonstrating how alliances can drag countries into protracted and costly conflicts. Regional alliances, too, play a crucial role in maintaining stability or fueling tensions, depending on the circumstances. In a way, alliances are a reflection of the trust or lack thereof that exists between nations.
Movies, TV, shows, video games. We're bombarded with images of World War III, often portrayed in vivid, action-packed detail that blurs the line between fiction and reality. Hollywood has a long history of capitalizing on our fears, and the prospect of global war is no exception. Think about movies like Red Dawn or The Day After, films that depicted a world ravaged by nuclear war where cities lie in ruins and survivors fight for scraps. These films, while entertaining, also tapped into our deepest anxieties about the future, painting a bleak picture of what a Third World War might look like. And it's not just movies. Video games like Call of Duty and Battlefield put players on the front lines of fictional global conflicts, allowing them to experience the adrenaline-pumping action of war from the comfort of their couches. While these games can be a lot of fun, they also risk desensitizing us to the horrors of real-world conflict. But perhaps the most insidious portrayal of World War III comes from the news media.
So, how do we prevent World War III? How do we navigate this complex and dangerous world without stumbling into catastrophe? The answer, while not simple, lies in a combination of diplomacy, cooperation, and a commitment to dialogue. Diplomacy, often overlooked in a world obsessed with military might, is the art of building bridges, finding common ground, and resolving conflicts through dialogue and negotiation. It's about understanding the perspectives of others, even when we disagree with them, and seeking solutions that benefit all parties involved. Organizations like the United Nations play a crucial role in this process, providing a forum for nations to come together, address shared challenges, and work towards peaceful resolutions. While the UN has its critics, it remains our best hope for a world where diplomacy trumps military force. Another key factor in preventing war is economic interdependence. When countries are linked together through trade and investment, they have a vested interest in each other's success. War, in this context, becomes bad for business, disrupting supply chains, destroying markets, and undermining economic stability. Think about the relationship between the United States and China. Despite their political differences, the two countries are deeply intertwined economically, with billions of dollars in trade flowing between them each year. This economic interdependence acts as a powerful incentive to maintain peace, as both sides recognize that war would be mutually destructive.
Even with the best intentions, there are certain flashpoints in the world, pressure points where a single spark could ignite a much larger conflagration. These flashpoints, often rooted in historical grievances, territorial disputes, or competition for resources, demand our attention and vigilance. One such flashpoint is the South China Sea, a strategically important waterway that's become a focal point for tensions between China, the United States, and other regional powers. China claims almost the entire sea as its own, a claim disputed by its neighbors and challenged by the United States, which sees China's actions as a threat to freedom of navigation and regional stability. The situation is further complicated by the presence of valuable resources in the South China Sea, including oil and natural gas reserves, making the dispute not just about territory, but also about economic power and control. Any miscalculation or accident in these contested waters could quickly escalate into a military confrontation. Another potential flashpoint is the ongoing conflict in Ukraine. Russia's annexation of Crimea in 2014 and its support for separatists in eastern Ukraine have created a dangerous standoff between Russia and the West. The presence of NATO troops in nearby countries adds another layer of complexity, raising the stakes of any potential miscalculation.
So, there we have it. The world sculpted in clay may seem fragile, but so is our own. The threat of World War III is a shadow that hangs over us, a stark reminder of the stakes involved and the importance of finding a better path forward. But here's the thing, The future isn't written yet, it's a story that's still being written, and we all have a role to play in shaping the ending. Diplomacy, cooperation, and understanding, these aren't just lofty ideals, they're the tools we need to build a safer and more peaceful world. It's a world where dialogue replaces threats, where cooperation trumps competition, and where we recognize that our shared humanity is far more important than our differences. The choice is ours. We can succumb to our fears, give in to the rhetoric of division and distrust, and stumble into the abyss of conflict. Or we can choose a different path, a path of hope, cooperation, and a shared commitment to building a better future for all.